let's talk about this then, shall we? Okay. Do not fall for the bait. Say no to new weapon types. And this is going, is there a survey or is there a new survey at the moment? I'm not too sure. So, question in the survey, would you like to see new basic weapon types added to the game? Current basic weapon types, broad blade sword, pistols, rectifier, gauntlets. Okay, yes, no. Okay, this person's a hard no. In combat, how much focus should be placed on specialised weapons like Zhezhi's paintbrush and Jian's wind spear, compared to basic weapons like the sword and the rectifier? Please consider how often each type should appear and contribute to combat flow. And then there's just this post here in regards to different characters and their weapons. Now, this to me is a totally separate thing from this, right? Because this is kind of what Wuthering Waves does anyway. You know, the weapon themselves sometimes are almost, apart from maybe like the sword users, are separate from what's actually being used in the fight, aren't they? If you know what I mean, in regards to it, like what we're seeing happen on screen from an animated standpoint. So I would definitely like to see their weapons, you know, in regards to things like the spear, the paintbrush, and whatever it is for other resonators, be used in combat more, honestly, I would. This question here, I think, has a little bit more to it, doesn't it? Which we'll talk about, but let's see what this person's put here first, Elwin, then we'll kind of reply to it and see what we think and what you guys think as well. And let me know what you think in the comments, all that good stuff. Right. Do not fall for the bait. Say no to new weapon types. There is a new survey going around asking if you want new weapon types. Say no. We currently have 5 weapon types, but nearly every new character we've had since launch barely used their weapons, and the devs gave them specialised weapons in their animations, which I'm cool with because that gives a lot more creativity with a smaller pool of weapons, and there's a reason at the moment why we might not want extra ones, which I'll go into. If they introduce new weapon types, it will only limit us, all of us. Our ability to share weapons between characters will be hampered by the amount of characters that can use them. True. The developers have never been shy as to using a unique weapon for each character since release, referred to Image 3. Take Richia, for example. She's a gauntlet user, but her entire kit is all about Pero. Zhezhi is a rectifier, but she uses a brush. Jian is a broadsword user, but uses a spear. Camilla, a sword user, but mostly uses her vines. This is all true. There is nothing stopping developers from being creative with animations. If they want an axe user, there is nothing stopping them from doing it, even if their weapon type is a sword. If we get more weapon types, our options become limited, not the developers. Instead, say no to new weapon types and answer you want specialised weapons to dominate the animations instead. I like how the person's like, you know, fucking do it, basically. But they do make a valid point. They do make a valid point in that, obviously, if you start to get more weapon types, at least initially when they come out, unless they have a vast pool ready to drop, those weapons, say a new weapon type comes out, the pool of weapons within that weapon type are going to be a lot smaller, so that character's going to be limited in what it gets to use, really. There's going to be a lot less of the ability to swap over characters, and less characters potentially can become, you know, that can actually like use multiple sets of weapons, maybe, you know, where the weapons are designed in, you know, like almost in what are those things called now, when you have like the crossover circles where certain weapons can cross over, or certain characters can use different weapons because they're considered in a family, let's say, you know, like a sword user could use maybe like, let's just say, like a spear or a polearm, you know, a hammer user could use an axe or something like that. A rectifier user could, I don't know, maybe potentially use something like a wand or a staff. You know, ranged weapon users, gun users could use bows and stuff. But obviously, we wouldn't see that in the animations. But we've also kind of got that anyway now, haven't we? But I think I would lean to maybe just going into animations, you know? We see a character, it's using an axe or it's using a spear. What's to say it can't just be a sword in the game? Or bring in skins, you know? Bring in unlockable skins that come with the character. You get the new resonator. It's a broad blade user. You put a skin on the weapon just looks like an axe. You know? I think that'd be a good middle ground. You know what I mean? Because as I say, if we do lean into new weapon types, they have to have like a flurry of weapons dropping all at the same time, doesn't there? Has to be a bunch of 4 stars and a couple of 5 stars as well to like allow these characters to pick from a pool of weapons. Because if not, it's going to be, 1, it's going to limit those characters. 2, it's going to make it a lot less free to play friendly, because you're going to have to really, if you want to use that character, you're going to need the 5 star. You know, even though 5 stars in this game are much more powerful than 4 stars. So I definitely do think there's a potential if you go down this route, you know, it can limit things. But again, I'm on the fence. I think there's a way to implement these correctly if they do go down the route of adding new weapons. And potentially, I think that could be allowing characters to have crossovers, you know? So if we did introduce like a spear into the game, let's say, that somebody like Jian could use a spear and a broad blade, you know? And that way as well, I think if we did that, I think it'd potentially add variance to the character's building, wouldn't he? Right? You know, because you could use them with a particular weapon. I don't know, let's just say basic stats. You've got this weapon here, it's crit rate, this weapon's crit damage. You know, you could swap it out, and this weapon is based a little bit more around a different attribute. You know, it's not a crit rate, it's energy regen or whatever. You know, it might not necessarily benefit that character right now, but in the future, potentially with other characters coming in, maybe it could. You know, maybe it could. I do think this is an interesting topic, to be fair. But I don't think it's simple as just saying, yeah, we should definitely or no. I wouldn't say no new weapon types personally, but I think it could be, if implemented badly, it would be rough, wouldn't it? You know, it needs to be thought out a little bit. It will be less free to play friendly, but also makes more game more boring when they won't add new weapons. I agree. I definitely would like to see more weapons in the game personally. Since day one, I've been saying I'd love to see characters using bow and arrows, crossbows, axes, swords, and the idea that I'm attaching a broad blade to a character who's got an axe just seems kind of weird, doesn't he? Oh yeah, I need the new 5-star sword for my axe character. That just feels odd to me. Now, I know it doesn't have to, like, represent that because the resonance, the forte, could be the personification of the weapon, so to speak. But still, it just feels a bit odd. So, like, I feel like maybe potentially allowing resonators to have a pool of weapons that they could actually use. And I think that'd open things up a little bit. Maybe it might be a little bit less free-to-play friendly, potentially, in that regard. Because there's just more weapon types for players. More things to chase, I guess, you know? It would be like having extra banners in a sense, wouldn't it? So I suppose there is something there. Genshin has at least 3 catalyst users that are basically brawlers. I mean, yeah, if they drop them all at once, but I think they can be done by only dropping one at a time. Okay. You really should do the Thorn Crown Rises quest. One of its rewards is a new rectifier that has energy regen like variation, but also has health bonus passive. I'm going to get round to doing that, actually. I do need to. More special cross options, basically. Yes, that's good. Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So, like, you know, it's almost, I guess we'd be going into, like, you know, a typical RPG territory there, or like an MMO where you've got a character that's, you know, has a role, has an archetype, but, you know, it almost gives them like a skill tree in a sense without having a skill tree, because we don't have skill trees in this game. We've got our traces, but we don't have branching skill trees. I think it'd be kind of an interesting way to talk about. I don't know, maybe I'm tripping here. This conversation of a way of introducing potential variations in builds for characters, you know what I mean? In regards to them having different styles of weapons. But obviously it'd be hard to re-implement that into characters that have already gone, which might potentially power creep characters, because new characters have been designed in mind with working potentially with multiple weapons, wouldn't they? So there might be overall more whole characters rather than older characters maybe being specifically designed in a particular way and not benefiting it from it so much, maybe. I don't know. I'd like to know what you guys think on that, really. Because I think it would be interesting to have new weapon types. Just from a visual standpoint, it would be cool. I'd love to see a character bashing the shit out of something with a giant axe, you know, or a big-ass fucking hammer. How cool would that look? You know? Or, like, little dual sword characters, you know, like somebody like a Lecture with, like, the little 3-pronged forks or little throwing knives or something like that. We were already, as most rectify users, attacking different ways, but agreed in swords is harder to change that sword to an axe. Exactly, yeah. Like, that's what I say. Like, we were kind of does something similar in regards. If like, we look at this here, you know, Jian, he's got a spear. You know, Yinlin uses the doll as well, doesn't she? I guess you could say that we have Jue coming in as well. Changli with the feathers as well. Yao with the cubes. Jeji with the brush. Shorekeeper with the butterflies. And Camilla with the vines. This is a truth. You know, their animation doesn't, you know, like when you look at Jinsei, a sword is like floating around and stuff, isn't it? So it could be done without changing the weapons. But it's one thing them expressing their forte in regards to Zapstring or, you know, cubes or a brush. It's a different thing if you're like, right, let me equip my broad blade to smash somebody with a hammer. you know, there's something just a little bit jarring about that for me that I don't know if just from a, obviously this would just be a visual thing because it wouldn't affect the game really, but just from a visual thing, it just seems a bit odd, doesn't it? And I'm like, you know, I don't know. Or even variations of the same weapon types like shotguns, double daggers, or swords. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you know, like you could have categories that pull into particular for weapons, you know. So this category here could include broad blades, spears, axes, or something, you know. This category over here could include, I don't know, maybe gauntlets, axes, something else. This category over here could be pistols, shotguns, rifles, bows, crossbows, something like that. And maybe potentially design the game where these could be interchanged between characters. So a pistol user could potentially use a crossbow if you wanted to. It wouldn't change the animations for older characters, and it wouldn't necessarily change the animations for newer characters, but it just would allow that like variation then. So you still do have that where you can have a character with a broad blade literally having axe animations, but it also allow you to have an axe for an axe animation, so it just was a little bit more in keeping, if that makes sense. Imagine a character that spins like Cammy but does so like a dance and uses double daggers to slash enemies. Yeah, well, we just saw the characters in Zenless, and Evelyn, she looks really cool in what she does as well. Really cool. So like something like that would be actually kind of dope, if I'm honest. But yeah, I think it could be fixed both ways. Obviously, the latter in regards to adding new weapon types would bring a whole new you know, potential bunch of issues to the game, but just having it the other way, where you've got somebody who's a broad blade and they're literally using an axe to smash the shit out of people, just feel a bit jarring. I don't know. I'd like to know what everybody thinks about this though, guys. Let me know in the comment section about what do you reckon about weapons in the game. And as well, it's a good point, 4-star weapons in the game in general could do with being a little bit better, couldn't they? It would be nice. So yeah, I'd like to know what you guys think anyway. Let me know in the comment section. Drop a like, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.